Hi everybody, and welcome. Let me make sure I have everything going. I think I do. Let me make sure that all of my sound is good, my cams are good. This is my first time doing Let's Chat. You're all seeing my actual background. This is where I actually stream when there is no green screen behind me. So yeah, how is everybody tonight? I'm seeing... Hey, hi Erica, and hi Locke, and Palmer, and Mad. Yeah, lots of really... I'm so excited. So, yeah. So Let's Chat. The purpose of Let's Chat was for us to have some one-on-one time, the GMs, and talk with chat, and get to kind of... in addition to brainstorm stuff for future things, although obviously like Join the Anarchy is more improvisational, so I try not to plan ahead. For me, a lot of the planning that I would want to do with you guys is going to be putting things that have happened in context or answering questions about things that you might be like, that was a plot hole. Because sometimes I'm not necessarily aware of what you guys are noticing, and, you know, it could... I think it would be great to just kind of expand on that privately amongst ourselves, even if that never actually comes up in the actual play itself. Or maybe it will. Maybe it helps put things in context for me better as a GM. So for me, it's a way to grow. It's a way to involve you guys further in a show that already has so much involvement. And then also... it's a way for maybe for you guys to grow too, right? For everybody to understand a little bit more about the beast that I'm dealing with as a game master for something that isn't just Shadowrun Anarchy, which is like a very underrepresented RPG system. But also for live stream GMing, or for just low prep GMing, or, you know, just general improvisational tips. So really, like, I'm here as a resource for you, and you're going to be a resource here for me, which I think is a nice give and take that we don't get to get on the main show. So yeah. So I guess, the other thing that I also wanted to start doing with these Let's Chats is doing a recap of things that have already occurred. Mainly just to catch us up, and also as a way, because I'm going to be putting these up on YouTube, so it's also a way for our audience who might not have been able to catch the show to have like a quick refresher, and like this is the cliff notes of what happened, right? And then that way maybe they can join our live shows, right? And be ready to go. So I guess I'll just go ahead and go into what happened previously. And I'm watching chat. Yeah, over here. Yeah, it's like reverse for me. I'm watching chat, so if you guys have any questions, just, you know, drop a bunch of question marks and then give me your question, and I'll make sure to answer it. So, previously on Join the Anarchy, the team infiltrated Ares' headquarters in Detroit, which I'm super excited about. And they did pretty well, all things considered. So what they're there for is specifically to find any kind of leverage that they can against Copper Colton, Voltar's father. The character Voltar, who's one of our PCs. Her father has basically threatened to expose the team's secrets. Like, one's a blood mage, one's a technomancer, and the other one's his daughter, so obviously he's not gonna, you know, but expose their secrets if they don't agree to doing like this suicide run in Chicago against an insect queen that he wants to do. I mean, he's not saying it's a suicide run, but they're like, this is a suicide run. So they don't feel comfortable, and rightfully so, they're trying to get that leverage. So they have done the next suicidal thing that they could do and go infiltrate Ares' world headquarters. And so that's one of their goals. So they have to find Copper's office, which Voltar would know where it is, but they have to actually get to it and access it, find the leverage against him, and get out. Right? So that they could actually use it. Hey, Cole. Welcome to Let's Chat. We're here chatting. Other things that that they're there for, Fritz was hired by someone named Tombstone Orion, who is Palmer in chat. Palmer came up with that as the stream boss NPC. Tombstone Orion said, "Hey, listen, this golden idol was sold out of Azatlan directly to Ares, and it is residing in the headquarters. So that's a side quest there. And the golden idol, the significance there is that it featured around the Azatlan arc, which is like a 4 to 7 or 8 or so. Like there was a good chunk of episodes in Azatlan that was about finding this golden idol, and that golden idol had been melted down into swimsuits. Yeah, this happened. Got melted down into swimsuits. The golden idol, if I remember correctly, and chat can, I meant to look this up. I've been really busy at work. Chat is free to confirm for me. It was an idol that caused the accident power to everyone around them. So if you're wearing the swimsuit, you are making everybody roll glitch dice that can't roll exploits on everything that they do. Was it a gold chainmail bikini? No, this was like, if I remember correctly, it was like this, like really sleek, sexy, one piece, but like asymmetrical. It was pretty. Like when I described it, I was like, man, I should be a fashion designer. But there's also like a pair of men's swim trunks that the villain of that arc, Senor Asukan, the drug lord of Azatlan, who is holding onto that thing, he was wearing them as well. So yeah. Anyway, so those swimsuits are somewhere in the Ares building, and Tombstone Orion wants them for either the Draco Foundation or the Atlantean Foundation. We know he works for somewhere along those lines, probably even both. Who wants it is still up in the air. It really kind of depends on the narrative, right? One of the things about improv GMing that's really interesting is that I have certain leeway with my story. I always leave myself like a second option just in case the first option gets cut off for me. So Atlantean or Draco, to me right now, I don't think it matters. They're both corporations, or rather they're foundations, right, that really want artifacts. And so I think either way, since Tombstone Orion would work for both of them, it's like, yeah, let's see where it lands. So that's happening. And then I think there was something else. Oh, Voltar's mother, Minerva, is hanging out somewhere. Hey, thanks for the follow, Astrea. Let me make sure, 227, make sure I didn't bungle your name. But thank you so much. So yeah, the other thing is Voltar's mother, Minerva, is somewhere in the tower, and she is lead research and development for Firewatch, and Firewatch is Ares' like prime, like they're like a SWAT team that's specifically specialized in clearing out bug hives. So they're usually like sent into Chicago to clear things out. So that's something of interest. They want to approach Minerva to see like what she knows about Voltar's past and what dirt she has on Copper Colton, because their divorce was not amicable. Yeah, special forces kind of folks, exactly. And so so that's a thing, and I'm really excited to actually meet Minerva. I have to meet Minerva. I don't really know what she's going to be like yet. I have a plan. My first instinct is to make Minerva even worse than Copper Colton is, but like Minerva hasn't seen Voltar in forever. I mean, feel free to give me some options in chat, right? Like, how is it that you when you heard about Minerva, what did you imagine her personality to be like, right? I mean, she's definitely super corporate, right? She has great presence, but I wonder, like, she left the marriage with Copper Colton, and this is the headcanon backstory, and I think some of it's been mentioned too. She left Copper Colton because after losing both of their kids, Victor and Victoria, in the Chicago quarantine zone when they were out on business, it took a strain on their relationship, so much so that she just had to call it out, right? Like, it was just one of those really damaging, those relationships where it's just more damaging than good to stay together. She just wanted like this clean slate and move on, whereas Copper Colton kept going, trying to find Victor and Victoria, and one of them, the one that they were able to pull out, Victor, ended up being converted into who we now know as Voltar, with like the full gender swap and everything, which he claims was something that they wanted, but whether or not that's true remains to be seen. Again, this is one of those things, right, where I'm leaving that open, right? I'm giving myself the in and the out, because Copper Colton to me, he's one of my favorite characters to play, because he is both a villainous character and a sympathetic villain, in that obviously I'm not about what he did to Voltar, but if he'd like, there's two ways to look at it. No, it's just awful. but like he genuinely, in his own deranged way, this is how he helped Victor / Voltar become a better person, because Victor was like mind broken, messed up, like was not going to survive, tried to kill himself multiple times. So it's like, yeah, his motivations make sense, is what I'm saying. I can't say that I agree with his motivations. There's like a huge gray area, right? Copper claims that Victor expressed that he was trans and he felt that he was female. So the fact that he took it upon himself to change his gender, with or without his consent, is already like gross, and I love exploring that. I mean, I hate exploring it, but I love exploring it, because it's just something that's kind of juicy, right? I mean, I hate it's just like it angers me so much, which is why I enjoy it. So anyway, yeah, so Copper is a well-intentioned parent who will do anything for their kids. But the mother, Minerva, wanted out, and she moved on. She married Arthur Vogel before Arthur Vogel. Hey, thanks, Trav. Thanks for the raid. Welcome to Let's Chat, where we are talking about both my show, Join the Anarchy, which is a Shadowrun Anarchy actual play here on Shadowcasters Network, or also just general game master tips for Shadowrun Anarchy, or Anarchy in general, player tips, etc. So feel free to ask me whatever you want. Also, Mr. Trav, I've been giving spoilers, so now I have to stop because you're here. Anyway, yeah, solid party of 2. You know what? I don't care. I love that. I love that you still brought your people here. Makes me feel like it's home. Yeah, total spoilers. Totes spoilers. I mean, I have to spoil a couple of things. I have to give a little bit of the backstory of what's happening. Yeah, yes. I've been building. I told you, I have a whole conspiracy map in my head of things of like how this led to that and this led to that. But like the future is amorphous. It's just cool about improv. I don't know where anything is going. And I have to further reiterate that, right? I don't know where things are going. I know what the objective is, and I know what the character motivations are. And to understand what character motivations are, I have to look at the context of everything that we've built so far that just kind of came out of nowhere, or audience suggestions. I look at that and I contextualize it. So I listen to the actual play over again and I take notes. And once I take those notes, I start drawing lines and I figure out like, oh, maybe if this was connected to this, then this is really juicy. And so then that informs things. So it's always improv, it's always moving forward, but what it means is that like characters' motivations are consistent, they're not just at a whim, right? So when I'm looking at audience suggestions, I'm filtering out stuff that doesn't make any sense. But if a player picks something that doesn't make any sense, like I'm not going to stop them. So I allow myself an out, which is that thing I was talking about where it could be this or it could be that. So if something happens where this gets blocked off, I have this route that I can go down. It's a lot to... There's a lot more to this than just making it up, okay? But yeah. So anyway, so that's my impressions of Minerva. I feel like she's more of a detached parent that wanted to bury her past and move forward. But I also find it interesting that she took an R&D position, lead R&D for Firewatch, which goes into the Chicago quarantine zone on a regular basis. I make improv sound like work. It is work. I make sure to do my research, right? And even then it's not perfect. And I take copious notes. I could show you, like, this is my binder. I have a bunch of tabs here that I meant to use for like more copious things. Like I have here, okay, so I've got like my PCs, session notes, people, places, things. This here, there's no spoilers here. This is all my to-do list before the stream. So you can't see anything. But yeah, so I have a bunch of tabs here, but I haven't put a single thing in them because I just kind of track everything on my own session notes, which I have here. So all my session notes, these are my session notes. And so that's what I look over and what I insert in. And when I'm when I'm hearing the actual play again, I'm also taking further notes, inserting them, and so that way, like, I know if I missed a detail, I have that detail. So yeah, have I ever watched competitive improv? I believe I have. I've done improv before. I did a class, an improv class. And by improv class, I mean like a semester. I don't mean like I went to one, improv theater troupe, showed up for a day and then left. I did like a whole semester. I got an A, so that means I did good. Funny story, on the final for our improv, okay, we had to do what they call a herald. A herald is a 30-minute long-form improv scene. And it's like a whole group, right? And it takes place in the whole thing just literally spawns off of one person stepping forward, telling a 2-minute story and stepping back. And then from there, everybody has to bounce off of each other, right? And so 2 people step forward, they start a scene, they set up their characters in relation to that story. And then 2 more people show up and they do a scene. And then like it all starts building together. And you have to keep it going for 30 minutes. You have like a whole 3-act structure thing. So the funny story is that I don't know what happened, but like if anybody's familiar with improv, there's a trick called yes and if you've heard any RPG help guides that have ever mentioned anything about improv, this is probably the very first rule, the yes and, which is when somebody gives you something, you don't deny it. You say, okay, that is legit what is happening, right? Like, and if it doesn't make any sense to you, your next step is you have to justify it. You have to justify why what you just said can make sense. Or otherwise you have to keep incorporating it, because the problem with saying no is that you're kind of like stopping the energy right there, and you're forcing the other person to have to come up with something new when you could have bounced something back at them that built up on it. And so like the audience registers that as like a what, and then the people on stage are caught in like this awkward moment of, you just said something but I said no, I don't want to deal with this. You have to deal with it. It's a thing that has occurred, right? Now with RPGs, it's a little different. It's not an improv. It's not improv per se, right? You have the right to say no. But generally, where am I even going with this? Okay, so the point was, oh, yes and. So that's what yes and is. So yes and was so ingrained in us that something happened where somebody mentioned, like, we were, you know, like, hey, let's be strippers, and because we're like hot, sexy firemen, and I was like, yeah, and I ripped off my shirt. I had to do the rest of my semester, or of my final for the semester shirtless. That happened. I got an A. So I guess it worked, right? And if I have no ideas to say yes, and I usually go, tell me more about that. This is also great, right? Like, so this is the other thing, right? When you're in an RPG, you're not performing for an audience. I mean, we are, but we're not like we don't have to be as on it as an improv group does. When you're doing improv theater, you have no stops. You have to keep going. For an RPG, you have the ability to be like, okay, hold on. Let's explain this a little better. Let's talk about this more. If you're doing an actual play where you're like a podcast and you're not, nobody can see you, you can't do a lot of miming, right? So sometimes you have to actually like be more explicit about how you're visualizing stuff. Improv theater, you can do a lot of like gesturing and pantomiming. You see it all the time on Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? Where like they open a door, they're like, eh! And like, and you know that they've just like stepped through a door. Yeah. So anyway, I was going there with somebody. Yeah, you have the opportunity to just kind of stop, regather your thoughts, ask more questions, and even be like, okay, what you want, I get what you're going for, but let me make this more canon to, like, let me dial this back, right? So that I can fit it into the world of the RPG, right? Because an RPG generally has a very established world. Shadowrun in particular has a very established world. So if somebody, you know, mentions alien potatoes, which we always get a bunch of flack for episode 1, campaign 1, potato aliens, I made that work as a plant spirit, right? Not legit an alien, but like in planar alien, I guess, right? So like that's what I mean by justifying things, or also just tweaking things, right? So that they make sense. So anyway, I'm sure I was going somewhere interesting with that, but that's my first lesson about justifying. You love the potato? I love the potato. That's an interesting way to start. But anyway, this isn't about campaign 1. Campaign 1 is done. That's in the past. We're in campaign 2. Campaign 2. So campaign 2, we have, they're in the middle of infiltrating Ares World freaking headquarters. I have never in my life GM'd something that is this intense. Like, I think the most intense thing they've done was probably the season finale of 1, right? Where they had to like fight a semi-dragon. But I can't think of anything that is this, like, I mean, they had to do like a Mitsuhama Zero Zone cruise ship, but since I had to wrap that up in a single episode, I didn't feel like I did that justice, right? Which is why I really wanted the Ares headquarters infiltration to go across multiple episodes. I mean, this is a 400-story building with all kinds of security in it. You know, like, there's just... It deserves more time than a single episode. So, yeah. Anyway, so this is huge. This is big. I mean, this is a step below going into Mitsuhama headquarters, or just a Zero Zone in general, I think. I mean, it's... yeah. So, I'm really excited about it. So like, and I'm also excited about how we ended that session. We ended it with Voltar and Deliverance down on the 35th floor, and Fritz on the 80th floor. Because the elevators that they were on 2 separate elevators. Fritz had more access than Deliverance did. Now Voltar has the handprints. Hi Kenji, how are you? So Voltar has handprints. She has dynamic handprints. She has Copper Colton's handprints. So she can go ahead and access executive elevators. But I think what I want to do is I want to make it so that I keep the parties split for a little bit before they can meet up again. So I want level 35 to be something that Voltar and Deliverance have to deal with for a little bit. And I don't really know how to best justify that other than like this elevator was not executive access. So, but executive access, it would imply that they could take that elevator to the 80th floor. So it's kind of like, I guess the only thing that I could possibly do, now that I think about it, is just shut down all the elevators, because elevator 17 was compromised. So they've shut down the elevators temporarily, leaving them to be like, well, shit. So I might spend a plot point on that at the beginning of the session. See, this is another thing that I do. I know that, again, it's improv, but I always try to come up with a catalyst, a backup, a thing that I'm like, okay, I have them in this position. Where do I want to kick things off from to kind of lead things, down a more exciting path? Because like, it would be kind of if Voltar could just be like, okay, never mind, 80th floor, ding, boom, and then they're whatever 80th floor is. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. I think I'm gonna spend one of my hard-earned plot points for that. Right? Yeah, totally sounds like a plot point. By the way, total side note, who's here for Optiverse in half an hour? Because I'm super excited to watch that show. Optiverse is going to be I'm just going to do a quick plug before we go back to me, because I'm the star for the next half hour. Optiverse is going to be it's the very beginning of a brand new anthology series of actual plays that are going to be using the Mutants and Mastermind system. Which is, superheroes, think Marvel, DC kind of thing. And the first actual play with this specific cast, NGM, which is Opti from Neo Anarchist Podcast, is going to be the Variants, which is kind of like analogous to X-Men. So you're going to have like an academy, and yeah. Hey, that's right, Dirk is here for Optiverse. Welcome. Sorry you have to put up with me for half an hour. No, hopefully you're enjoying this. Shit. I'm such an idiot. So anyway, yeah, so that's happening and I'm very excited for it. So yeah, after this is done, make sure that you're supporting Optiverse, which is going to start we're going to have the stream go down for like 5 minutes and then anyway. Okay, so back to me, right? Back to my show. So I guess I've kind of expressed where we're at, what I'm thinking of doing, my plans for the actual tower, the actual skyscraper, and what they encounter on those floors. I'm gonna leave to the audience. I don't want to know. Don't say anything in chat. I don't want to get any ideas. I want you guys to think about it. And then on the day of, surprise all of us with your genius idea of what's on the 35th floor and on the 80th floor. And remember, the 35th floor was only like boring wage slave access. So this can't be like a special floor. This has to be something like boring AF. And then the 80th floor, an R&D person was able to have access to. It was the very top that elevator could go before they have to like get off and take another series of elevators. So what I'm thinking at the very least is that the 80th floor is going to have a central hub area that's going to also look really nice, right? Because if it's going to keep leading up higher and is like a stop gap between the first elevator shaft and then the second elevator shaft, it's going to have a nice kind of central lobby area, right? But then everything outside of that is up for grabs. So, and obviously, like, this is what's also cool, is that if Voltar and Deliverance are stuck on the 35th floor, having to find a way to get up to the 80th, then Fritz has more of a reason to explore the 80th floor, or at least find a hidey hole and help Deliverance and Voltar via the Matrix, since he's a technomancer. So, yeah. Yeah, Trav's like, yes, give us your ideas. Don't cheat, man. Don't cheat. So yeah, that's as far as my planning is gonna go. But also keeping in mind the various other things, right? Hey, thanks, Geek Unleashed. Appreciate that follow. Welcome to the Shadowcasters Network. I think of interest is that Fritz has access to the Firewatch Research and Development Labs, which means he has a way to potentially get to Minerva, or at the very least Minerva's laboratories and office. So that could be a really interesting point. We know that the lab is on the 275th floor, so they still have a ways to go, but they could potentially get there. The Golden Idol is still like, where would it be? And then Copper Colton's office is probably even higher, since he's a director of biotechnology. So those are just things to think about. I don't want to think about them further than that, because I don't want to set up expectations for myself, because I need to keep that improv style of GM. If anybody has questions they would like to ask me, I am of course open. I'm watching chat. I'm here. I'm a resource. I am drinking today Voodoo Ranger IPA, brought to you by... It's not brought to you by... We should have sponsors. I don't typically like IPAs, but this one is tolerable. One thing I do want to mention is I'm trying really hard, okay, to avoid insect spirits for now, for a while. Mainly because, okay, everybody knows that Ares is analogous with bug spirits, right? Like, everybody says, like, the bug spirits have infiltrated the actual Ares headquarters, and actually the actual play, one of the things that was mentioned by Dingo, one of the NPCs that was created by another stream boss, Mr. Stonebender, Chris from Crit Squad, was that the bugs were coming to Detroit. So right now there's a big threat that's looming over them that I don't think the players have fully grasped the severity of, whether or not it's even true, right? Because again, leaving my way out, right? If it is true, I mean, that could be a really fun plot point to go after, but I don't want to necessarily do it right now. I want to leave the bug spirit infiltration of Ares to still be more ambiguous, to be more of a rumor, and I want to really focus on exactly an ace in the hole to unveil at the scariest possible moment. I want to focus on Ares as a corporate culture. I want to focus on Ares on all of their other ways that they would defend themselves, that all of the building security and all of the intricacies of what that headquarters would look like, rather than just make like the top 100 floors all be a bug hive. Like, I don't want to go down that road. So, yeah. I love insect spirits too. And Chicago Chaos, the new Shadowrun Anarchy book that came out, has a whole bunch of statted bug spirits for me to pick from. So I'm very excited to unleash those. But yeah, I because there's either the bugs coming into Detroit, or potentially, depending on how things play out, there's always that possibility that the players will end up taking that job finally to go to Chicago. in which case they're going to be dealing with bug spirits there in the quarantine zone. So it's kind of like, why unveil it now when I have so much to play with the themes of massive layoffs and unemployments that Ares is doing because of their move to Atlanta, which, by the way, is canon. I want you guys to know that. One of the things that I find really fascinating about, and this was something that I was paying attention to for a while when Detroit started becoming a point of interest when we were kind of forming this campaign, I noticed that Ares, there was lots of rumors of Ares leaving Detroit. And the more research that I did on Detroit, the more that I realized the storyline that's happening right now in Shadowrun lore in regards to Ares and its timeline is very much a story of history repeating itself with Detroit, where when Ford and all of those major car companies came in and basically made their industry Detroit had this huge expansion. I mean, it was a massive city. It was huge. Their infrastructure and their employment was fantastic. It was one of the best producing cities that we had in America. And then when all of those companies left because they could do all of their stuff overseas, and to be fair, like, the way that they had things set up in Detroit wasn't cost effective. They had cars being manufactured, like they had parts being manufactured all over the city that then had to be shipped to be built and manufactured. And so there was a lot of extra overhead costs that didn't need to be there. So they, like, when they did that, they basically ripped out the entire economy of Detroit. And not to mention, there was like a whole lot of race issue stuff that occurred as well, gentrification and all that was also a mess, that contributed to it as well. But ultimately, history is repeating itself, where Ares is transplanting itself. Like, all of Detroit was reformed as a hub again because Damian Knight decided, or not Damian Knight, who is the guy who started Ares? Maybe it was Damian Knight. Damian Knight came in and built it, but I think there was a predecessor to Damian Knight who used to be the major CEO of Ares. Then Damian Knight took over, and I think he was the one that chose to put the headquarters. Aurelius, thank you. Nicholas Aurelius. I think it was Damian Knight who decided to build. I have to look that up again. I know that in general, Ares came in and decided to build their headquarters. The land was cheap and turned downtown into like super nice sprawl, corporate, clean, etc. But of course, Detroit is so massive and expansive that they basically just built a wall around what they could develop, what they wanted to, what they thought was good enough for their bottom line for PR purposes, and then left all of the rest to just kind of rot and deal with itself. So Ares comes in, revitalizes the economy for Detroit, and now they're pulling out. And again, this is a situation where Detroit is so desperate that they've put all of their eggs in that one basket. And when you rip that out, you're left with a bunch of people without employment. And now people that can't keep moving forward, right? But meanwhile, they're moving to Atlanta. They're moving to the CAS because the CAS has outbid the UCAS and gave them a home in Atlanta. So now that they're moving to Atlanta, a bunch of people in Atlanta are going to be getting a bunch of employment. Good for them, right? And jobs are going to skyrocket there. So Ares is only going to take the essential personnel from Detroit, transfer them to Atlanta, while letting everybody else go. So there's a lot of really good... I feel like cyberpunk... This is a very cyberpunk story in that there's unemployment and it's very relevant to us, right, is that unemployment and that fear of having everything just ripped out from under you and not being able to make ends meet because there's no safety net, is very like real anxiety that we have today. And I think cyberpunk is supposed to mirror a lot of our current day anxieties. So anyway, he owned GM before Ares was a thing, so I think it was always in Detroit. No, I think I want to say that that's wrong, but I know for sure he owned. I think what happened was he might have owned General Motors, but Ares, it wasn't a thing until he purchased NASA. And then when he purchased NASA, I think that's when Ares started becoming a thing. I have to look that up again. I used to know the whole plot. I could pull it up now, but I just don't. I don't want to like mess up my stream by accident. I'm doing so well. And you all know how I am with technical difficulties. So anyway, so this was definitely one of those themes that I really, really, really wanted to play with. And I'm very excited that I finally got to inject that in and be like, Detroit's pulling out. And this has left the entire city in like riot mode and chaos that Detroit is known for. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to mine in there. And, that's really what I want my focus to be on for now. Shadowrun and real actual things that have happened. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, because there's like a split in that timeline, right? Where like around 1980 something is where things started kind of diverging, and then I think it was 2000 when like the big major changes started occurring. So. I see people talking about elder gods in chat, and let me tell you, I am very excited that elder gods got introduced into Shadowrun Anarchy. I mean, just Shadowrun in general. I can't say just Shadowrun Anarchy. Shadowrun. I'm very excited about it. I would love to fit them in somehow. I just don't see the story going down that route yet. There's a lot of like, there's blood magic, there's bug spirits, and like, you know, your standard baddies, I guess, is what I would say. I think there's some room for like maybe horrors, but I don't know how far I'm going to be able to go down the Elder Gods route. Could be fun though. Could be fun. I think there was an opportunity I remember thinking there was an opportunity for me to go down the Elder Gods route. And I want to say it was, gosh, this must have been, like maybe this was during the Rome arc. I was thinking of going down that route, but it ended up not kind of panning out that way. It ended up being more about Shadim. But there were certain little things that were happening, including like something that I felt was happening, which was the Black Lodge was involved in the affairs. I can't really say to what capacity, right? I'm not going to say that, but I do think that the Black Lodge was involved somehow. And so then I was like, maybe I can like tie in Elder God, but then they never really followed down that path, that rabbit hole. So I was like, fine, no big deal. No biggie. I can keep working with what I've got. So I saw a local high school girl at the store the other day who was wearing her sports jersey with the name Derleth. Yeah. Was her number 666. I do have to say I love Lovecraftian lore, mainly from like the Fantasy Flight section of things. Like I love Arkham Horror. I love all the board games. Arkham Horror, Mansions of Madness. They just had a recent one. Why am I blanking? Whatever. Eldritch Horror. I love all those board games. So we, as I'm sure some of you have seen, if you've ever watched me on Once Upon a Tabletop, I keep bringing back Mansions of Madness because I love it so much. So I'm really excited to... They haven't put out Arkham Horror 3rd Edition on Tabletop Simulator. I really want them to, so I could, like, pop that in and we can actually show that off. Because Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is just so clean. It's such a good game. Anyway, okay, so going back to everything. Looking forward to our next run of that on What's Upon a Tabletop, for sure. For sure. We're gonna make that happen. Shadowrun Anarchy. I have now been GMing it for, I think this is my 3rd year now, which is just mind-blowing now that I think about it. We're actually going to be starting, I think we actually already might have started our, I think we already surpassed our 1st year anniversary, because we started in March. I remember, because January and February was the Court of Shadows arc, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the Court of Shadows arc, it is so cool. That is, hold on, let me get to my nerd shelf. I actually have the physical book of Court of Shadows, and so this is set in the Sealy Court. It's an alternate setting. It's a really, really nice book, and it's so underappreciated, and like everything is just so gorgeous. But yeah, so we played this setting for like 4 episodes. Scrim was the GM. She did an amazing job. She was going to do a much better job than I could, because she's more fantasy oriented than I am. I'm just finally starting to get into fantasy. I'm GMing, well, not DMing, let me use the right terminology. I'm doing D&D for my tabletop group, and that's been really fun. But yeah, at the time, I was more cyberpunk, urban, paranoia, so like sci-fi, dystopian, like that's my thing. So yeah. Oh, you know some people who wrote a bunch of that? Yes. I played a troll who was a character. Yeah. I loved my troll. But anyway, so we played that, and then we started it in March. So yeah, I think now that we're 21 episodes in, we're going to be doing our 22nd episode. Yeah, we've been at it for about a year, this campaign, and then we had about another full year prior to that. So I guess maybe we're starting our 3rd year. We're starting our 3rd year. Yeah, it's a good book. And here's the thing, like, what you're getting with it is a lot of setting, but you need all of that setting to really run it, because it's just completely different from Shadowrun, period. Like, it's a separate plane of existence with a whole set of characters that are important to the storyline, explanations of like the tarot deck, or at least the factions that are in line with the tarot deck, which I don't know if you can see, I have it over here as well. So yeah, and yes, I agree, Prism Shard, it definitely works better in Anarchy than in 5e. The rules conversions in Court of Shadows I found to be kind of lackluster for converting from 5e, like all of their stuff over. It was a little yeah. Doing it in Anarchy, I think, just helps. And I think also what's the advantage of doing Court of Shadows in Shadowrun Anarchy is that you don't have to prep so much. You can just grab a character and play around in the setting for a few sessions and call it a day. Like, you don't have to do like this weird conversion of your character of like, okay, what does each bit of my cyberware look like in this Fey land, like, because they get all steampunky. And then, you know, like, I grew antlers because I was more of a druid, because I was a rigger, and riggers control animals, like all of their drones become animals. So yeah, the setting really does have so much untapped potential. It's yeah, Season 1, Episode 1 hit YouTube October 25th, 2016. Okay, but then Season 2, I think, was March. Season 2, Episode 1, I think, was March. So, yeah. So then we are, let's see, 2017, 2018. Yeah, no, okay, we're 2-ish. We're starting we're working on our 3rd year. So, well, yeah, it doesn't click because it's such a weird setting, you know? Like you don't play Shadowrun to play in a fantasy alternate setting. You play it to, you know, be in a cyberpunk dystopia. But yeah. Either way, like, you know, just switch it up. Have some fun, man. Like, don't take your Shadowrun so seriously. It's such a good setting, and it's rife with stuff to play with. So worth it. So yeah, we're a couple of months away from 3 years. Hey, so yeah, we are about 8 minutes away from Optiverse, and I'm gonna give it like 5 minutes of downtime just to give them some time to get themselves acclimated. So I guess if anybody has any questions in chat that they would like to ask me, I can answer probably 1 or 2 before I have to take it offline. Don't take your Shadowrun so seriously is my favorite advice of the day. Good. Please take that to heart, because it can only, it gets, you know, it can get tiresome to just kind of do the same old thing when the world has so much for you to explore and so many different stories for you to tell. And I've learned that firsthand, both with playing Shadowrun Anarchy in general, but also doing the Court of Shadows arc, doing Tales from the Stuffer Shack, which is a podcast over on Violent Life where I play a Stuffer Shack clerk. And yeah, so there's so much that you can do. All right. Bye, Kenji. Good seeing you. Yeah, there's so much you can do in Shadowrun in the setting. So why limit yourself to, you know, Seattle? Anyway, if you want to watch our next episode, so we weren't able to premiere again. This has been kind of frustrating that we can't, that we keep missing episodes, although this one was like legit. Scrim could not be with us due to medical issues, so like she's better now, but like she had to miss Join the Anarchy, and I wasn't willing to do the episode without her because of like the grandioseness of our situation in Ares headquarters, and she also had to skip Night Witches. But Night Witches, which is the thing that she's going to be GMing, is coming up this Wednesday, the 27th, so definitely check that out. That's going to be a historical fiction RPG set in World War II, and it follows the real-life 588th Bomber Regiment of the Soviet Union, which was an all-female bomber squad that flew into enemy lines, bombed the crap out of the Germans, and flew out. And the Germans called them the Night Witches. So I'm really excited about it, and that's like a Powered by the Apocalypse RPG, which I've been really intrigued by a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games lately. So I'm curious to see how this one plays out. So there's that, and then Join the Anarchy is going to be next Monday, which is April Fool's Day, and legit we're gonna actually be on, right? And at that point, then we're gonna continue and we're gonna go ahead and incorporate all of the things that we talked about today. So definitely check us out at 9 p.m. And also, for those of you interested, after you watch Optiverse, which I'm sure you're gonna stick around for, right? After you watch Optiverse, make sure that you show up at 8 p.m. before Join the Anarchy next Monday, because Opti is gonna be on to talk about Optiverse, the variants. So I really like this like back and forth switching that we're doing, you know? We get to like kind of be each other's pre-show. It's pretty fun. All right, well then, everybody, I'm gonna take my leave, and you all though, however, need to stick around, because in 4 minutes, Optiverse, the variants will begin. It is a Mutants and Masterminds tabletop RPG. It is superheroes being heroic. It's their premiere episode, so give them lots of love, lots of support, and yeah, stick around. It's an anthology series too, so there's going to be more of it. There's going to be so much more of it. So many different groups and GMs and stuff doing things. It's going to be like a whole universe. It's like our most ambitious project yet, and I'm very excited for it. So, okay. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Much love, and stay tuned. Bye.